Good afternoon and welcome to our What's Buzzin' at Georgia Tech webinar series. We are so excited to be joined with us by a very special colleague, just kind of focusing on student engagement at Georgia Tech. At Georgia Tech, we are a very rigorous and prestigious institution, but there is so much more outside the classroom that really helps our students develop, get new experiences, meet new friends, and just really contribute to overall student success. If you have any questions for our very special presenter, please feel free to utilize the Q&A chat box. Once again, if you have any questions, please feel free to utilize the Q&A chat box. Please know that this session will be recorded and posted to our YouTube channel within 24 hours after completion. And without further ado, I'll introduce Quinn Foster.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tyler. Hi, everybody. My name is Quinn. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm the Director of Student Organizations in the Center for Student Engagement. So Tyler and I are both in the same division here. We work in student engagement and well-being. So the purpose of our time together today is talking about how to help your student figure out how to get involved or what ways they would like to be involved at Georgia Tech. And we'll also talk about why that's really important. So let me go ahead and pull up our slide deck here so you can see what I'm seeing. Perfect. And Tyler mentioned this a second ago, but if you do have questions that come up, I invite you to put those in the Q&A so that I can answer them as we go, or I might put them in the parking lot so that we can revisit them at the end of the presentation. Awesome. So let's go ahead and get started. We're talking #EngageGT today, how to get engaged, do cool stuff, and find your place at Tech. For your students who attended Facet, they would have experienced this session with us this summer, or a similar version of this presentation this summer. So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start by talking about the difference between involvement and engagement. They are similar, right? They're in the same family, but we'll talk about some important distinctions between the two. We'll go over the big why. Why should my student be spending their precious study time doing things outside of the classroom? And then finally, I'm going to give you 3 entry points that you can share with your student in case, they're feeling like a little late to the party and they feel like they still want to get involved, and what are the opportunities available to them. Okay, so if you guys don't mind, just want to double check that the chat box is working. I would love to know if there are particular things that you would like to get out of our time together today. So if there are burning questions that you have about student involvement or student engagement, I'd love to hear about those, or anything else that you're interested in making sure that I cover today. Please go ahead and drop those in the Q&A box. While those are percolating, I'll give you a brief overview of the Center for Student Engagement. So there are 4 areas that reside under the umbrella of the Center for Student Engagement. That's civic engagement, so focusing on service, on philanthropy, and advocacy. We have fraternity and sorority life, right? You might also know this as Greek organization. So this is our social fraternities and sororities on campus. We have student publications, so that would be our 7 written publications, as well as the rec radio. And then finally, student organizations. So we have about 550 registered student organizations at Tech, which is a huge number, and there's more chartering every day. And so these are the 4 areas that we focus on in our center for helping students to find those involvement and engagement opportunities outside of the classroom. Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between involvement and engagement. So when we think about involvement, I want you to sort of, if you went to college or if you have friends or family members who went to college, to think back to when you first got to campus or when they first got to campus, right? A lot of the time when you're experiencing a brand new environment, everything can feel overwhelming. Even the smallest detail can feel really big. And so one of the wonderful things about being on a college campus is that there are so many ways to get involved, right? So this first category, and these are low stakes, easy entry points for students to get a taste of what different parts of the GT community can look like and where they might start to find their niche or where they fit in. And so involvement, we tell students we want you to try, if you can imagine all of the opportunities on campus as a buffet. We want you to sample a little bit of everything, right? So we want you to go on a one-day service event. We want you to try going on a hiking trip with outdoor recreation or Orjet. Maybe you want to go to a basketball game or a football game, right? These low stakes, low risk, low investment opportunities are to help you to sort of get the flavor of campus. And you should try as a student as many of these as you are interested in. In fact, maybe some that you're kind of like, I'm not necessarily interested in it, but my roommate's going to chess club and I want to be friends with my roommate, right? So let me go with them. On the other side, we have engagement opportunities. And so these are your deeper, more involved, more investment-oriented opportunities where your student says, I've found this experience, maybe it's undergraduate research, or maybe it's a student organization, or, doing service projects. I found this thing that I really love and that makes me feel like I'm part of the community, like I belong here. And I want to invest more deeply in that. So examples of engagement opportunities could be serving as a leader or an officer within a student organization. It could be joining a fraternity or sorority. You could DJ for rec radio. These engagement opportunities are where your student is investing their time, energy, resources into that engagement opportunity, and they're getting returns from that engagement opportunity. So that could be things like networking on campus or professionally. It could be developing leadership skills, right? How do I have a difficult conversation with a teammate, right? Or how do I lead a meeting? So involvement, just to recap, we want you to try a little bit of everything. These are low stakes opportunities. Engagement, on the other hand, these are deep dives, they're real investments. And for our students, especially if they're new to tech as first year students, transfer students, we encourage them to keep the engagement a little bit on the lower side, maybe one or two of those deeper engagement opportunities in their first year or so at Georgia Tech. Okay, so you talked about the difference between involvement and engagement. And next, I want to talk to you a little bit about the big why. So I get this question quite a lot from family members when we are at Facet or at Preview Tech, any of our admissions events. Parents, understandably, and family members are really concerned because they hear about how rigorous tech is, and their brilliant little fish is going to be dumped into the sea of other brilliant little fish, and shouldn't they really need to focus on making sure that all of the work they put into getting into Georgia Tech, that they maintain that level of rigor? And the answer is, obviously, we want all of our students to persist to graduation and get that GT degree, right? That is why we are all here. But what we know from a few decades of research in higher education and student affairs in particular is that our students thrive when they have opportunities outside of the classroom. This is particularly salient or maybe obvious if you think about what it would be like for your student to just have moved schools. Maybe they were in high school, right? Like imagine if you were to just pick up your student out of their little bubble and drop them somewhere else. They're going to have questions like, who are my professors? Who are my friends? Who do I eat lunch with, right? Like who are my study buddies, right? Who are my people in this new environment? And so similarly, when your student is here at Georgia Tech, we know that we have to cultivate and think about some of these ways that we can acclimate them and make students feel like they belong here. So the first one up here, as I'm alluding to, is community and belonging. So we know that most of the friendships and partnerships that are coming out of student experiences are not necessarily your lab mates, right? But instead, there's somebody you met because you were in the bowling alley in the student center, because you checked out this random club, what have you. But community and belonging and feeling like there's a place for you at Tech, that you belong here, that you fit in, is really essential to student persistence. The second thing we know from research is that students actually do better academically if they are involved outside of the classroom. So our students who are, locked away in their room studying or locked away in the library studying 24/7 find that their life sort of loses balance, right? That they're going to start to see, maybe their grades are doing okay in terms of, I'm passing these tests, but I'm not getting enough sleep anymore. And I'm finding that my social interaction is really lacking, or I'm not feeling fulfilled in some other way outside of academics. So we know that being involved or being engaged can really contribute to overall academic success and GPAs. And then finally, being involved outside of the classroom is where your student is going to continue to develop those social skills and new professional skills that they'll need as they start to apply for internships and co-ops and even out into the workforce. So again, going back to thinking about taking a leadership position in a student organization, I can tell you that it was my experience working in our version of Pride Alliance in my undergrad that I first learned how to host a meeting. I was really nervous. I'd never sat in front of a crowd of my peers quite like that before. And it was those kinds of opportunities that helped me then translate my degree to employers. So I often say in Facet to students, the thing is, you're graduating with thousands of other students with the same degree as you. So when you show that degree to an employer, how are you going to stand out, right? It's your ability to say, well, I was engaged or I was involved in doing these things and I developed skills or networked or developed, community in that way. So those are some of the things when we think about the big why it's important for your student to get involved. So next up, I want to share with you 3 entry points for your student. Around this time of year, as we hit the stride of the semester, I start to hear students who are newer to tech really say like, it's over. Like all of the newbie stuff that was going on is already done and everybody's already found their friends. Everybody's already found their clubs. Like nobody's going to want me anymore. Like there are no opportunities for me. So maybe that's resonating with some of you if you've heard this from your student. I actually had an anecdote. I was talking to a colleague of mine last night, and he was talking about how he'd sent his daughter off to college. She's at UGA this year, or that school down the road, as we like to say at Tech. And one day she messaged him and was just like, Dad, I'm really, really miserable. This is not the place for me. Like, I got to get out of here. And so he packed up the car in a frenzy. She texted him at night and he packs up the car in a frenzy and goes driving all the way out to UGA. And he gets there the next day and she's like, yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm fine now. Actually, this is exactly the place that I want to be. I went to this event with a club last night and I found some new friends and we're going to go study later. Right. And I thought this was like a really just perfect for this kind of presentation, a really good example. So if your student is still looking for ways to get involved, here are some entry points available to them. The first one we're going to focus on is participating in service and volunteering. So Georgia Tech's motto is 3 words. It's progress and service, right? So we want to improve the human condition and serve our community, local, regional, national, and internationally. One of the ways that we do that is through something called alternative service breaks. I'll probably also mention it as ASB, which is its acronym. But on alternative service breaks, these happen during any institute holiday. So that could be fall break, winter break, spring break, and summer break. We take students to travel domestically or internationally to serve with our community partners. So to highlight some of these trips, in the past, we've worked with Habitat for Humanity in Florida, Boys and Girls Club in Mississippi, with Outreach 360 doing tutoring in the Dominican Republic, and then working on fair trade and infrastructure with community collaborations in Guatemala. So if your student is interested in one of those deeper dive service opportunities, these tend to be between 4 and 9 days, depending on which break they participate in. But ASB is a wonderful way to sort of get off campus, make closer, tighter connections with some new folks. Entry point number 2 is exploring opportunities in fraternity and sorority life. So about 26% of the undergraduate population at Tech is Greek, or they are involved in a fraternity or sorority. And so some of our students are legacies, right? Their family members were involved in a fraternity or sorority, and some of them are brand new and before they got to Tech never even considered that they might join a fraternity or sorority. Heck, maybe they travel from, a home country where they don't really have fraternities and sororities, right? So I think at this point in the semester, you'll probably hear like, oh, but CPC recruitment is done or IFC rush is over. But the fact of the matter is that if your student is interested in going through recruitment for any of the 4 councils, Interfraternity Council, Collegiate Panhellenic Council, Multicultural Panhellenic Council, or National Panhellenic Council, all 4 of those will continue to do intake this semester and next. If you're interested in learning more about fraternity and sorority life, you can visit their website at greek.gatech.edu. Our final entry point for today is something called Engage. So Engage is a platform. It's a web-based platform, so you can find it in any browser, where we have, well, I left a typo up there talking about flows. I apologize. Where we have 550 of our registered student organizations. You can search them by keyword, by category. There are 10 categories up on the screen here. And I mentioned earlier that there are more organizations chartering every day. So if your student goes through Engage and they can't find the Underwater Basket Weavers Club and they really want that one, they are welcome to charter an organization that's relevant to something they're passionate about or something that they're interested in. Wonderful. Okay, so thank you so much. I want to pull up the questions now and make sure that I answer those. So the first question we got was, what kinds of tips do you have on advice to give students because there are so many options? I think that I'm of two minds with this question. That it's a really great question. The challenge can really be there are so many opportunities. So if I were to talk to a student, I think I'd give them a few pieces of advice. The first one would be that just because you try something out doesn't mean you have to stick with it. I think students really feel this burden of responsibility, like, oh, I went to their new member meeting. Does that mean I have to keep going? Or I went to 10 general body meetings. Do I have to stick with it? And the answer is no, right? Like they can drop out of anything that's not serving them, which brings me to the second point, which is over time, they're going to get more keen ability to determine what is or is not suiting them in their life at Georgia Tech. What their needs are in their second semester of their first year are going to be radically different from what they need 2 years later in the spring semester of their third year. So also, encouraging them to be thoughtful and reflect on what it is they need these days, right? Whatever stage of their time at Tech is. And then the final one, I think the final piece of advice that I have is it's okay to stick with the things that you know. So if your student, for example, was really involved in the American Red Cross Club or Beta Club or, an outdoorsy club, maybe they're involved in a local faith community, sticking with things that are familiar is a great way to get started. That way things feel less overwhelming or, or new. Sticking with something familiar can be a great way to start. So there's another question asking, their student played girls volleyball at high school. That's the only activity she might have to engage. I understand the only volleyball activity at Georgia Tech is at performance level. Is there any volleyball program at recreation level? Yes, there is. So we have the D1 athletics volleyball team, right? We also have a competitive sports club, which is women's volleyball. I do believe that they have tryouts, so I don't know if your student has already looked into that one. I don't know if that's a great fit for her or not. But then third, I believe, I can double check here in a minute, but I believe that we also have volleyball intramurals, which are purely recreational and available to any student to join. So those are hosted through the Campus Recreation Center and are a great way to get to know some new students. I believe they also do them gendered and co-ed, in case your student is interested in gendered or co-ed opportunities. Let's see, so the next question, this person likes the approach about the advantage of engaging will improve student performance. Of course, parents are encouraging the same thing, but a student peer might have better luck. How does Georgia Tech encourage our students to get involved? I think that there's a variety of ways that we encourage students to get involved. And I want to be really clear. This is a great question for opening up this thing that I meant to mention earlier, which is the 4 areas in the Center for Student Engagement that I focused on today are not the only ways to get involved. So to answer the question, how do we encourage folks to get involved? I think Tech has just a plethora of opportunities, whether it's undergraduate research, studying abroad, being a tutor, working on campus, doing service through tutoring, whatever it is. There are lots and lots of opportunities. And I think the culture of students at Georgia Tech is such that everybody is sort of engaged in something. So hopefully that helps to answer your question. Are there any costs associated with alternative service breaks? There are. There are participant trip costs, there are also scholarships for students who might need them. So if that's a concern for you at all, I still encourage your student to apply so that we can talk to them about making sure that they're able to participate without financial burden. The next question was, can you join Greek Life in the spring semester? You absolutely can. So IFC and CPC will each have a sort of informal process in the spring. MPC, the Multicultural Panhellenic Council, I'm not sure actually if they host recruitment in the spring. I'd have to check on that for you. And then finally for NPHC, the National Panhellenic Council, they have a slightly different structure than other councils in that their graduate chapters actually determine when their chapters are going to be doing intake. So you might find that some NPHC chapters host an intake in the fall semester and some are going to host in the spring semester. But overall, there are Greek opportunities in the spring. And then the final question, when do enrollments to student organizations happen? Is there a deadline? Enrollments happen every day. And there is no final date on when you have to join an organization by. So your student can apply or request to join at any point. And I would say that it's probably a big myth on campus that everybody joins their organizations in the first 2 weeks. That's just not true. I know that because I work with our student organizations and they're always asking me about how they can up their membership in October or in March, right? So I would remind your student that organizations are always open to new members and there is no deadline. They can get involved whenever they like. Wonderful. So I think, oh, there's one more question. Are there any specific on-campus organizations who focus on mentoring? One-on-one mentor may be beneficial for students who are shy. There are lots of mentor opportunities on campus. They do tend to be focused around a particular area. So there's not a sort of general yellow jacket to yellow jacket matching, but you can find that there are peer mentors in many departments on campus. So I'm thinking of there's a mentor program out of the counseling center. There's a mentor program out of research. There's a mentor program out of undergraduate education and so on and so forth. There's one out of the LGBTQIA Resource Center. So depending on what kinds of things your student is interested in, some of those examples I just shared, they could find potentially mentoring opportunities or peer-to-peer matching programs in that particular sphere of what they're interested in. The next question was, what is the cost of Greek Life? And is this cost allowed via 529 plans? So the cost of Greek Life, there's not a singular number that I can give you. Each chapter has different fees for participation. There is also a universal Greek fee that is assessed through the bursar's office. And I'm not sure about whether or not that cost is allowed via 529 plans. I apologize. Cool. Tyler, did I miss any questions?
No, I think that's everything. We do have a nice compliment for you. I congratulate you on your presentation and approach. I can see you love what you do and you do a great job. And I can definitely echo that.
Thanks.
Quinn and her team do an amazing job of engaging our students, getting them connected to the right resources and organizations, and just helping them thrive at Georgia Tech. I'm always so jealous of Quinn whenever she presents. I always think that she could have a second career as a TED Talk speaker, just with her flow and her elegance. So very thankful that she was able to join us here today. Quinn, if they have any additional questions, would you mind dropping an office email in the chat, general office email, front desk person they can call if they have any additional questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll drop it in the chat. It's really easy. It's just the word engage at gatech.edu or gatech.edu. And so you can email us at that central location and we'll farm your email out to the right person who can get you the answers you're looking for.
Perfect. Once again, parents and family members, thank you so much for joining us. Please join us tomorrow as we have another very special guest, Laura Garcia, who is over the Career Center, as we are embarking on our All Majors Career Fair next week on Monday and Tuesday. So she'll be kind of talking about how you should present yourself at the Career Fair, how you should introduce yourself, some resume tips and things of that sort, just career coaching and overall some things that they offer within our great office. within the Career Center. So please tune in for that tomorrow, 12 p.m. And also just visit our site to check out future webinars as they are on the horizon. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Go Jackets.